Beyond and hello, everyone. My name is Jonathan Dornbush, and this is Beyond episode 604, IGN's weekly PlayStation show where we occasionally talk about PlayStation games. I'm joined this week by Tom Ricardo Marks. Have I guessed that before?
Probably, but no, it's still wrong.
All right.
That'd be a weird one.
Hello.
Hello. Also joined by Lucy O'Brien.
Hello.
Hello, Lucy. Glad to have you here.
Yes, it is good to be
We're
here.
also joined.
What does the O stand for?
Oh,
Ophelia.
Okay, cool.
I was going to say original.
I think it's O Ricardo.
Or Ricardo.
And we're also joined by Brian Altano.
Hi, good to see you guys. I
Welcome
missed
back,
this.
Brian.
Thanks for having me.
You've been gone for quite a while.
A lot, like a month.
Yeah. Where have you been? Tell us of your world travel.
I went to Belgium to shoot an episode of Fast Travel, which is our travel show here at IGN. You should watch it. This will be our 8th episode. It's basically a travel show for nerds and gamers and geeks, or whatever weird derogatory terms we assign ourselves for enjoying things finer nature, such as retro game stores and comic book shops. And then I went to Gamescom, which many of you saw was a long and grueling show with many farts. And then I went to Mexico for vacation, which was nothing like the other things.
Did you find any game stores there?
None. No video game references whatsoever at all. It was kind of nuts. It was good though.
They got to get their act together.
Exactly. I know. Come on, guys.
But we're glad to have you back.
It's good to be back.
And
Thanks for having me.
Lucy, you're back.
I am. I did not do as much traveling as Brian, but I was in among all the farts at Gamescom.
And we'll talk a bit about what you guys saw and did at Gamescom. And then, of course, Tom, you've been here since the beginning of time. You haven't left, but you have been reviewing Monster Hunter World Iceborne.
I did do that.
Which
for
we'll get to.
For longer than you've been gone.
Yeah, you played a
Feels
lot
like
of
you've
that.
been working on that review since I was born. Like I came into the world and it's like you were sitting there reviewing that game.
Well, it's because I did, and I talked about this on the show, but I spent 3 weeks replaying the game on PlayStation 4 because I had like 100 hours on PC, and I put 70-something hours in on PlayStation 4 before I started playing the Iceborne for review.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
How many hours did you put into Iceborne, would you say?
At least that many.
Okay.
It's probably around there by the time I reviewed it, but I'm definitely not done playing it.
So you're not that familiar with the game?
No, it's surface level stuff.
Yeah, fair enough, understandable. We'll get to your Iceborne impressions in a bit and how your review went and all that. For reference, if anyone's wondering as well, Max is still out. He's on vacation right now. He'll be back eventually, and as he started a new segment last time he was on, we'll find out what's in his pockets when he returns. That is a real segment that Max began and then forgot about, and then we got on air. And Max was like, headphones.
What was in his pocket? Like a live bird?
Just headphones.
Oh.
Yeah. He meant to do something and then forgot to put something funny in his pocket, so he had headphones.
My Clipper card.
We'll find out maybe what else is in some of our pockets. But in addition to that, we're going to be taking a trophy test a little later, Until Dawn. So look forward to that. But first, let's dive into News Crunch.
Crunch.
A lot to talk about this week on News Crunch. The first thing I want to talk about, relatively within the time that it still is relevant, but not as often as it could be. We usually miss the free PlayStation Plus games per month. They usually get announced the day after we record. I think that was the case this year, but they go live today as we're recording, so the day before this goes up. The games for September are Batman Arkham Knight and Darksiders 3.
Cool.
Good month.
Which is a pretty reasonable month. 2015 is when Batman Arkham Knight came out, whereas Darksiders 3 actually came out last year. There's a new Darksiders coming out this year, but it's not a full, proper numbered title. So if you missed out on the third entry, this is a really good excuse to go back. And of course, if you missed out on all the fun of the Batmobile in Batman Arkham Knight.
That was the only drag.
That's the only
I look back on that game and I'm like, wow, that has such so many great moments in that game, but then it was just so bogged down by all the Batmobile stuff.
But I think for me, especially going back, and I'm sure Barrett Courtney, if he's listening, will tweet at us all about it, but I think there's a lot more that's great to Arkham Knight that we don't talk about.
It's true.
Because everyone was so much the Batmobile. But
it's true.
The Joker-Batman relationship in that game that I don't want to spoil for anyone who might be jumping into it with PlayStation Plus is so good in that game.
And it's so organic. It's done so organically.
Yeah.
I love that part of it. It's like you feel like you are sort of experiencing this world and telling your own story, and then suddenly the Joker is in a place that you just sort of never expected to see him.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
It's also like that's a game that I think everybody was critical of at the time for several reasons. One, because we had gotten a like pretty awesome Batman game every few years, and this one came along and just moved the needle in the wrong way. But it has been so damn long since we've had like a actual big Batman game like that maybe it is worth revisiting something that you didn't really like to begin with. The other thing people didn't like was that it cost $60, and now it won't because it's on PlayStation Plus. So remove the money.
Are you thinking of the Arkham Origins for the $60, or were people actually mad about the price then?
No, I mean just that it costs a lot of money to be disappointed.
Oh, okay.
Which it doesn't on PlayStation Plus.
Yes.
That should be
true.
the tagline.
Fair point there. Yes.
You know what? The only reason that I remember the Batmobile stuff so vividly is because there was one particular puzzle, and I forget.
The winch in the tunnel on the when you hang up. So yeah, of
I
course.
think that I think that like I was
hate
like
that puzzle.
I think I was almost like, and I know this is a terrible thing to say. I'm an adult woman. I should know better. But I think I was so frustrated at that part. I was like near tears, and I had to like walk away. I was just like, I was just swearing. I was like slamming. I was like,
yeah, you had to basically bring the car. This is not a spoiler because it's too stupid to be one. You basically had to bring your Batmobile up the wall of like a giant toilet and using the winch by pulling it up this wall, and it just kept getting stuck on things. And it was just like, it was such a weird idea. It was also the same summer that we were yanking on trees in Uncharted 4 with the winch, I believe. So it was
winch
a weird,
heavy summer.
Shortly after,
the
the
weird year for winches.
we gave Arkham Knight a 9.2, so obviously there is still a lot to love there. I think for me, my biggest problem, I weirdly don't remember that aspect, but I just remember one specific, or maybe there were several. I think there were several where just like the Batmobile it's a stealth action sequence. Like you kept having to stealth around other cars with the Batmobile, and it's like these are giant moving vehicles, and yet you have to be quiet.
We also we constantly have that conversation about Batman and does he kill, does he not kill? This game, he obviously doesn't kill because he's Batman, but he destroys everything with his car.
Yes.
And he shoots bullets that are apparently rubber, but also wreck stuff.
Yep.
Hits people, but I guess they're okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that.
That's like the real problem when it comes to superhero games, where it's like they're not killing, but Lucy and I will talk about this a little later. We played Marvel's Avengers, and
they're just severely brain damaged.
yeah, the Hulk is just smashing men into the concrete.
Yeah.
Like Thor's hammer pushes a man's chest inward as he gets slammed into a car. Like they're dead.
Definitely.
They're dead.
I appreciated Spider-Man, right?
I was just about to say.
Kick people off buildings, and there's that little like web that comes
Yep.
and saves them.
Yeah.
Even though again, you're slamming like manhole covers into people's heads also.
But
whatever.
Their
You
lives are
save
not
them
worth
from
living
falls.
anymore.
Yeah.
Like no life for like Mr. Grunt, who's just taken a manhole cover to the face.
If a teenager drop kicked you from the top of the Empire State Building, you wouldn't be fine. Like it would be a bad day.
I would love if some developer out there made a game that was just a quick game from the perspective of a henchman in a superhero game, and it's like in the skate games where you see how much destruction happens to your body, but basically how badly you get beaten up and how long you can survive until.
Well, because like usually they get beat up the same way, whether they're like a boss with like a gun or they're a guy that's like, I guess I'll rob the grocery store.
I
have a metal rod. That's it.
But there's this like a guy standing there in the
shield?
park with a red jumper. And it's like, oh, I better destroy his life. Better shit on his day now.
This is a little bit tangential, but the whole do superheroes kill thing is so funny to me, especially in like the MCU, where 3 seasons of Daredevil and 2 seasons of Jessica Jones on the Netflix shows were all about like, we can't kill people.
Yep.
And Tony Stark just has a laser gun. Like that's just what he uses.
Yeah.
None of the MCU heroes in the movies care about killing people, and all they talk about in the TV shows.
There's one, and again, then we'll get off the tangent. Age of Ultron actually got a lot of flack for the Sokovia thing.
Oh yeah,
because they saved everyone, but they're still like, but still that much of the Earth coming back down would cause so much murder. And so in the opening of Civil War, there's the opening scene where it's like Cap and Scarlet Witch and all these people saving from a building, and Cap very specifically like they go down, zoom in on him, and he's like, save all the people in that building. And that was like very specifically to be like, see, they're not murdering, they care.
There's also all the people that return from Thanos' snap in a place where like then in 5 years they built a building and they got clipped into like a wall, like a Bethesda game.
Or like
it's a lot of bad deaths that happen
people
there.
who are like mid-flight and then suddenly they come back and the plane is gone, and they're
sitting in there holding an iPad.
Yeah, yeah.
With the headphone. Oh,
Superhero. All I'm saying is,
yeah.
It gets dark.
Batmobile can shoot people, and I'm like not gonna fault it.
That's true.
Anyway,
That's true.
speaking of games where someone disproportionately kills a lot of people, wanted to briefly mention also Uncharted 2, Uncharted 3, and The Last of Us multiplayer servers are being shut down on the PS3 as of today as we're recording. So by the time you're listening to this, those are down. Obviously, Uncharted on PS4 and The Last of Us Remastered on PS4 still have multiplayer servers. I believe they're actually going through a update patch to be able to, hopefully bring in a lot of new people that are coming on and be able to support that. But those servers on PS3 are shutting down. So if you've enjoyed those multiplayer servers, I actually played a lot of Uncharted 2 and Uncharted 3 multiplayer back in the day, and a bit of The Last of Us, which is way better than you would expect The Last of Us
The Last of
multiplayer
Us
to be.
multiplayer was surprisingly good.
Yeah.
It was really fun.
And it still has a really dedicated audience. Because there are there are only like 18 trophies in that game, and 2 of them are like for beating the campaigns of the multiplayer, which take like dozens of hours. So people are like there to help people getting into it to be able to get through all that. So it's a really cool community that still exists there. So if you are a player of those games on PS3, there is still a community for you there on the PS4.
I really appreciate the trophy Sherpas out there.
Yeah, I love it as a thing.
Helping people decades later get over the mountaintop. It's really beautiful.
It ties in really with kind of how the Monster Hunter community seems to be with these new games. But we'll get there later. Casey just helps people.
Oh yeah.
Casey helps people. Did want to bring up though games that you will be able to play again soon. Aladdin and Lion King, the classic side-scrolling games, are coming back in a collection that is coming, I believe, this October for PS4 as well as Xbox and Switch. But of course, we won't talk about those. The collection includes multiple versions of each game, so I want to read those out. Yeah,
I find this
didn't know
so
that.
weird because I grew up with it was called the Mega Drive in New Zealand, but the Genesis versions. Why is that amusing?
Just the cough, I think, gave it a little bit of shade that maybe I think you weren't intending.
Yeah, it wasn't
Yeah, like when
intentional.
people are like, "Yeah, I was hanging out with my friend." Bullshit.
We had the Mega Drive.
Yeah.
And so I only play the Mega Drive versions. I never played the SNES versions, and I'm really interested as to this grab bag of versions that they've chosen for this particular re-release.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a group of, I'm writing down a curse that I have to bleep out. Don't worry about it.
Oh, sorry.
No,
I thought I bleeped it with my hand.
I'll listen back to the audio. We'll find out. Anyway, the list of versions that are included for Aladdin, it's the Sega Genesis version, the Game Boy version, and the Super Game Boy version, something called the new Aladdin Final Cut, which we don't really know what that adds, but there's a new sort of like deluxe edition of it, as well as the Aladdin Trade Show demo, which is a demo version of the game that has not been publicly available since 1993.
So not the Super Nintendo version.
Not the Super Nintendo version, which...
But a demo they had at like CES 40 years ago.
Yes, exactly.
That's so weird.
The SNES version, as Sam Claiborne, who wrote the story for us, because who else should have written this on staff but Sam, noted that also has the distinction of being designed by Resident Evil creator Shinji Mikami, or is that the Genesis version?
Ooh, probably the Genesis version.
I'm going to look
was
that up in a
better
second.
one.
But anyway, other than that, the Lion King will also get the Sega Genesis version, the SNES version, and the Game Boy version, which also includes the Super Game Boy version.
Oh, cool.
So-
that's a very hard game, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Lion King.
Yeah.
Lion King was rough.
What was that
Well,
one where
now
you were
this
jumping
has-
up a waterfall?
I can't. Oh, that one. I almost cursed again. I hate that level. There's the one, I Can't Wait to Be King, where you have to jump on the
giraffes.
animals, the giraffes'
Yeah,
heads.
the drafts are
It's
so
just that weird, like, really finicky precision of, like, back in the 90s where platformers were like, okay, you kind of have to go back and then forward.
Yep.
In midair.
Yeah.
It's like click, click.
Well,
Like, it's not one smooth jump.
Simba had like a weird like rhythm to, because he's got 4 legs, which is weird for platformers.
Yeah.
And like the animals in the game or that help you in the movie do not help you in the game. Like when you jump on an animal's head in the movie, he's just like, oh yeah, keep doing your song. And in the game, they're just
soon to be king.
yeah. In the game, they're
like-
just like, I'm gonna put my head down and you're gonna die.
Well, the nice thing is, and I mentioned this on MDC too, but it's going to have rewind and save states.
Yeah.
So in that terrible, terrible level, will probably significantly easier to get through as you save scum your way past the monkeys.
But I mean,
Yeah.
let's be fair. Like most of the people, like myself, because I immediately pre-ordered this. Most of the people who are buying these games are doing it for nostalgia reasons, not because they want to put themselves through that punishing, like, no save experience.
Right.
Again. I mean, I might just be speaking for myself, but like for me, I just want to like go back and experience the levels and hear the like little 16-bit music and really enjoy that and not have to like be weeping because I've grown soft in my old age.
No, same here.
You'll cry at Batman Arkham Knight. But
this is
not the line.
This is an interesting collection because it's a fraction of sort of the iconic classic Capcom Disney games, and we got a couple in the Disney Afternoon collection. So they're sort of like they're eventually getting them all out there, but just in like weird groups. Yeah. But I'm okay with that as long as they get re-released.
And yeah, as Tom mentioned, there's a few new features. They call the save state thing the interactive game viewer as well, where you can basically watch the game and then pause at certain areas and just jump into it.
Oh.
Yeah. So stuff like that, updated visuals that you can play it as it was originally built and all of that. So yeah, a lot there. If you've never played those games, as we've mentioned, good luck with the difficulty of
When's that out?
That is out in October. I believe there is an exact release date,
Sweet.
But let me find that. Vamping for time.
That's okay.
Everything's good. Nope,
I can
it's too late
October's
now.
good enough for me.
I'm going to find it for
I don't
October
need the other
29th.
information. You're doing fine.
For $29.99.
Oh, perfect.
There you go. Moving on from that, wanted to bring up a story last week, but a lot has happened in the last week or so, and that includes Telltale sort of returning.
Weird.
Yeah, so this is a weird one where Telltale Games, as a company, the name is being revived, but the company itself and all the employees that were working there are not necessarily coming back together. The new Telltale Games is being run by Jamie Ottley, I believe that's how you say it, and Brian Waddle. Ottley was the founder and CEO of Galaxy Pest Control, which worked with such licensed properties as Duck Dynasty and Power Rangers, while Waddle had previously ran sales and marketing for the Havoc game engine. They confirmed that, quote, some workers from the original Telltale will be offered freelance roles with full-time positions possible in the future, but that is not necessarily indicative that the whole creative team will come back of any of these games. And in terms of licenses that they may have access to, that really depends on which companies have allowed them to renew those licenses and which have not. Obviously, something like Minecraft reverted back to Microsoft and things of that nature. It seems, though, they may still be able to retain the rights to The Wolf Among Us, among some of their things, such as original Telltale games like Puzzle Agent. But yeah, it's a weird case where the Telltale we know doesn't exist anymore, but the name Telltale will now still exist, and they're going to try.
It's like Toys R Us.
Yes, yeah.
Where it's like it went away, everyone lost their jobs, and all the audience was really sad. And then a couple months later, somebody was like, "Let's bring it back." And you're like, we're kind of still mourning. And also, a lot of people are still angry at you guys for like not handling this correctly.
Yeah, I sort of feel like I've seen two camps of thought. Like one is that it's awesome that we might get a Wolf Among Us 2 because that particular game was so good. And, it's awesome that these licenses might have the chance to live again. And then, there's people like me who sort of feel like this is kind of like Telltale's been buried in the pet cemetery and then it's come out as like, it looks like Telltale, but it's different and it's a bit wrong because, of course it's not going to be the same company, and it's not even just not going to be the same company. It's going to be completely different.
Right.
It's not even that. To say, like, it's weird. To say the company has been revived is misleading. The brand has been revived.
Yeah.
Right? Somebody has essentially purchased that brand and whatever, as you mentioned, whatever licenses it has retained, and are just using those to make games that they see as hard to make without the Telltale name, which is fair because nobody really made games. Not many people made games like Telltale games, to the point where I think they even mentioned this in their announcement that like Telltale is basically a genre, right? When you say it's a Telltale game or it's like a Telltale game, to the point where it's even confusing to people where like what's the one that I'm totally blanking on for people that make Life is Strange. Right?
Yeah.
Life is Strange is a game where you're like, oh, that's basically a Telltale game. And that word has sort of transcended the company. And I think that's what they're capitalizing on here, is that they're reviving that. They're reviving that recognizable, quick sort of thing where you can say, oh, Telltale is making this game, even if it's completely not the same people and not the same vision and not the same everything else.
It's just a shame because that also, it's such a cynical sell to me, because so much of the reason that I loved Telltale games weren't necessarily because of the engine or
Definitely not.
definitely not the engine, or that particular genre, if we want to call it that. But it was because of the humor and the storytelling. And
it's the writing, it's the art direction, it's the voice acting.
Yeah.
I mean, to get all those voice actors together, we're friends with a couple of them ever since just covering this industry for the last few years. It takes a lot to get that band back together. It's not just the logo. So,
and there's no clear sign to what extent they will get a band back together. Like obviously them saying there will be opportunities for some former Telltale employees. We don't know. Does that mean 5 employees? Does that mean 100? Like there's such a weird extent there. And then when it comes to the creative teams, are you just going to perfectly reassemble a creative team? Is that like their focus, this new company? It's really unclear where they go from here to make it still feel like Telltale games beyond just saying it has choice.
Is it better to get, if you have a favorite TV show that got canceled after 2 seasons, is it better to just leave it or get closure, in quotes, from an entirely new team of people who are going to sort of drag it to the finish line?
I don't want to see The Wolf Among Us get Community season 4,
right?
Basically,
no, exactly.
Or The Simpsons past anything season 10.
Yeah, it's a very weird situation, and I think for anyone who's excited for Telltale to come back, I understand that excitement, but I do think you need to set expectations that, one, we don't know to what scale they're looking to make games, but also what the actual tenor of these games is going to feel like. It's very strange. Moving on from that, though, in some more lighthearted news of a new game being announced, Shovel Knight Dig has been announced. A new Shovel Knight game, which is being co-developed by, and I'm going to find this.
Nitrome.
There we go. Thank you. Nitrome is working in conjunction with Yacht Club Games, of course, the original makers of Shovel Knight, for a game that follows Drill Knight and, quote, his dastardly digging crew blasting apart Shovel Knight's peaceful campsite and stealing his loot. Shovel Knight then grabs his shovel blade and begins chasing after them. Players will, quote, jump, slash, and dig their way down an ever-changing chasm of mystery in Shovel Knight Dig. So basically, Steamroll Dig-esque or Dig Dug-esque.
With a little bit of Downwell.
Yeah, a little bit of that. Yeah. Apparently it's infinitely replayable. That they said that it's got handcrafted levels that are stitched together. So I think that it probably is going to be some sort of roguelike experience or roguelite or whatever you want to call it. You'll be able to play it a bunch of times and it'll change every time.
We got SteamWorld Quest this year, which was cool, but I'm more of a SteamWorld Dig guy, and SteamWorld Dig 1 and 2 are 2 of my favorite Metroidvanias ever made. So I'm excited for this. It's cool to see them doing more stuff under their studio. Besides this and what's the other game they're putting out? Cyber Ninja or whatever.
Oh yeah, the game they're publishing.
Right.
Yes, yeah.
I'm totally butchering the name of, and I'll get called out for it. But
it's nice that Yacht Club is kind of taking on this more umbrella focus than just making Shovel Knight and then making more Shovel Knight.
Yep.
They're co-partnering with people to make Shovel Knight.
And Nitrome. Nitrome is a studio that might not jump out at you. Nitrome was one of my favorite Flash game sites back probably a decade ago. And all they do is they just made these really beautifully pixelated, pretty bite-sized games, whether they were platformers or puzzle games. They made all these different kinds of things, and they just made a ton of them. They just made a bunch of games, and you can still go to their site, and if you have Flash installed, still play their games. And a lot of them really, really hold up. So it's really cool to see this because it's a developer that has a long, long track record of making, not every one of their games was a winner, but making consistent games that were pretty and had a vision and just were fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's exciting to see them, especially knowing Yacht Club's pedigree, to join up and see what they can make together.
Yeah, exactly.
So that should be exciting to see. We don't have a release date yet, but more Shovel Knight is always a great thing, and I know the show for a long time has been a big proponent of the Shovel Knight franchise, so excited to see what comes next.
Right.
Beyond that, a sequel to Man of Medan was teased shortly after its release called Little Hope. It will apparently be released in 2020. A trailer for this was revealed. It apparently came originally after the Man of Medan credits, so I guess slight spoiler if you haven't finished Man of Medan, which Lucy has because she reviewed.
I did.
The trailer, I guess some spoilers, though it's an anthology series, so not too much of what happens in Man of Medan. The trailer features Bandersnatch and Midsummer's Will Poulter as Andrew and appears to be set in a creepy town called Little Hope. A young girl with a doll can be seen dancing around a fire, and Andrew's friend Angela is shown to be in trouble. Beyond that, there's very little in the trailer of what it is. Lucy, you played through Man of Medan how many times for the review?
I played through twice. And I played through like some co-op as well, which was a really fun way to play it. I mean, it's like a lot of people are sort of upset, and why do I even, a lot of people are upset at me because of this review, like, surprise. A lot of people are upset at the fact that I called out, because like I enjoyed it. I gave it a 7. I thought it was really good, but I think that it lacked a lot of the charm of Until Dawn. And I think what I liked so much about Until Dawn is that it reveled in its horror tropes, and therefore kind of like felt a little bit like postmodern. I hate using that word, but like it felt like a little bit like, it's like Scream, the video game. It's messing around with tropes and having fun with like very familiar settings and scenarios and characters. And I think with Man of Medan, it was sort of much more muted. Like the characters weren't particularly
less campy.
Yeah, it was less campy, and therefore it was a little less interesting, because it was just like, oh, okay, these characters aren't really speaking to me. I'm not really getting a lot from them. The scenario is, it starts off really slowly. So that was my main criticism. And people were like, well, a horror game you shouldn't be docking points for it not being funny. And it's like, no, that's not the point I'm making. What I'm trying to say is like, it's just lacking that, like, because horror comes in all different flavors. Horror isn't just relentlessly scary, because come on, like, there's some games can be relentlessly scary, and that's awesome, but like not everyone wants that experience. And I think with this interactive storytelling kind of stuff that Supermassive is going for, they're so good at telling those stories that really play with the genre, and I just felt like this wasn't in the same way. But with that said, I still found it really fun. I still really enjoyed seeing how many ways I can kill these characters and how many ways I can save them, and also playing with a friend is such a great experience, because you don't know how that friend is going to react, how that friend is going to control that experience. So you don't know, are we in this together to save all of these characters, or are you going to go rogue and just decide to mess everything up? And that's a really fun co-op experience to have. And I had a really good time with it.
So you feel like probably there's a decent base here for this anthology series, because every story is going to be different. So it's possible like the setting or the characters may connect with you more next time.
Yeah, I guess like another thing that would have been really cool to have seen Supermassive done is go through different genres of horror, and again, like play through, like, because Until Dawn was very much slasher. I mean, I know it didn't end up being that way, spoilers. But the setup and the tropes it explored were very much in the slasher genre.
Yeah.
And it would have been really cool to have seen Man of Medan sort of explore something else. It kind of like, it was a little bit like sci-fi horror. It was a little bit like Event Horizon-y. Like, oh, this ship is alive kind of thing, which was cool. But like, it wasn't quite clever enough for me. And I know that sounds really snobby, and I'm probably going to get flayed alive in the comments, but like,
no, horror is tough in video games.
It's
tough.
It's, yeah.
I'm playing Blair Witch right now, which is not on PS4, but same sort of deal, where I'm just like, stuff that works in film, such as, them running around disoriented, doesn't necessarily translate well to a video game. That actually becomes a frustrating experience. So, and I appreciate what you say about like different genres of horror, which in itself is its own genre. I don't think a lot of people think about it like that. I think they're just like, is it scary? Yes or no? And it's not that binary. Yeah, there's creepy, there's unsettling, there's disturbing, there's stuff that doesn't have any jump scares at all that you walk away from like horrified. There's stuff like, Hereditary, which is just downright drenched in disgusting nightmares for hours, and then you watch Midsummer and you're like, oh, that's not doing the same thing, but holy crap, is it weird and creepy in a totally different way.
Yeah, and even then on the other side, you've got movies like Child's Play and like Cabin in the Woods and all of these other kind of genres that are very much, there's a lot of levity there, there's a lot of humor there, there's a lot of playfulness there. That doesn't mean they're not horror movies. So yeah, I find the kind of black and white argument that there shouldn't be levity in a horror video game quite frustrating.
A black and white horror movie I want to see is The Lighthouse. It's coming out this week.
Same,
really
so good. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to them playing with more genres, and I'm pleased that this is an anthology because I want to see more.
Yeah, I'm excited for them to. I'm curious how long into development they are on this next one. Obviously, they're looking to do these pretty quick turnaround wise, but they already have 4 or 5 ideas in place, I believe.
Yeah.
So seeing how maybe they can adjust course over the course of the next couple will be very curious to see. But
I would love to, honestly, I would love to write one of those things. It'd be so much fun.
Cut to a year from now. Lucy's like, today is my final day.
The woman of Medan.
Oh no.
I don't know
Not
why.
like that phrase. Well, Lucy, before you go off to write one of the anthology, what are they called?
The Dark Pictures.
Dark
anthology.
Pictures anthology. Before you go off to write one of those, hopefully you will be around to find out what the secret new Resident Evil project is.
No.
Capcom's teasing a new RE with a reveal at the Tokyo Game Show this September. There was a teaser website that came up last week that had a title on it that said Project Resistance. Obviously, the R and E in it were highlighted, so Resident Evil. This has led to a lot of speculation of it possibly being a new Resident Evil Outbreak. I have no idea of Resident Evil Outbreak before all this discussion. Is anyone on the panel a fan of that?
I played it ages ago.
Okay.
It was, I would say, in terms of the endeavors that the Resident Evil franchise has made into multiplayer, it was one of my favorites. It was one of the ones I liked more. Then focused.
First foray into co-op.
Yeah, because it felt like the most grounded in the single player games. It still had like sort of tanky controls, but you kind of work together on stuff instead of being like, I forget what it was. Was it Operation Raccoon City? Was the first person shooter?
It
was just like aggressively bad. Just it was just like, oh, let's make Call of Duty money. So I hope this is not like one of those like, oh, let's get Call of Duty money, let's get Battle Royale money. I hope this is something more interesting. Selfishly, we just got Resident Evil 2 this year, so if they do want to go diagonal with this for a broader multiplayer audience, do what you got to do to make money, as long as we get Resident Evil 3 and Resident Evil 4 remakes eventually.
Well, I do like, we've all been talking about like, where do they go next? Resident Evil 8 or Resident Evil 3 remake? And I like the idea of like, no, what if they divert course and do another really big new diversion of the Resident Evil franchise? And maybe it's like they kind of know the momentum they're working with, and I don't think they would just take a risk on something they don't believe in.
Yeah,
Well,
totally.
I agree, but counterpoint Umbrella Corps, right? Like, I loved Resident Evil 2 remake, and I honestly will be excited to some degree for kind of whatever comes next in this series, because I think they're doing so well recently. But the scary part of it not being Resident Evil 8 or Resident Evil 3 remake is that their spin-offs have not always been slam dunks. They haven't always been successes. They've experimented with stuff and failed, which is great. I love that a developer with a franchise that's this venerated can take risks and screw up and still keep going. I think that's wonderful. But it is like a little bit like, it gets me a little bit nervous that you're like, maybe if they go some other direction, it's going to be another kind of like fun one, but you know,
Like
that's
just
not
kind
the
of
end
a
the world.
watered down, because Umbrella is very much like a watered down kind of Resident Evil. It was fine.
Yeah, it's not. You know, I'm still excited for it. It's just like I understand maybe that why there would be some apprehension, especially when RE2 remake was just such a good single player experience, and people are so apprehensive of everything turning into multiplayer nowadays too. I just kind of get all of that feeling.
Yeah,
totally.
I hope it can fill the Left 4 Dead 3 hole in our hearts, though, and maybe be that fun. Last but not least, in News Crunch, just wanted to mention, unfortunately, Max is not here, but Yakuza 7 was officially announced. It is changing up the formula in a big way because now battles are turn-based.
He is going to be so mad at this when he gets back from vacation.
I can't wait.
Probably not. He probably hasn't looked at this. He's going to come home and he's going to find out that his favorite franchise is going turn-based, and he's going to be livid.
This is like when Cyberpunk tweeted at him and was like, "Hey Max, we have some exclusives we all want to talk to you about," and he just wasn't around. What's really funny about this is though that they first basically teased this in a deleted April Fool's video earlier this year that showed the protagonist engaging in turn-based combat.
Why would you fake people out with a lie on April Fool's Day and then make it real?
That
think
is
that's genius.
so funny. I
love
love that. It's like, oh, here's like something ridiculous. Oh, April Fools. And it's like a couple of months later, no, that was very serious.
Yeah.
Hey, I mean,
We're investing a lot of money.
most of the stuff in our fake Nintendo Direct this year is probably going to come true eventually.
Yeah, that's fair.
Aside from Donkey Kong's divorce cruise.
The thing I really appreciate about this, and I think
Just you
Max
wait.
will take solace in, is I really loved the kind of transparency that the development team had with this, where they were like, hey, we're going to try out this weird new direction, and if it doesn't work and people don't like it, well, we just won't do it again.
Yeah.
For the next one.
I
And,
love that.
That's
Yeah.
really wonderful that they're just like, yeah, if you guys don't like this, like, that's fine. It's not like
That is
like
cool.
the future of the series. Like, we're just trying something.
Do we know? I feel like the audience response to this has been mixed. I've seen like some petitions. I almost said
Yeah.
protests.
I don't know. I think that the
Everything
response I've
that's a
seen,
protest.
Turn-based protest.
the response I've seen has not been as negative as you would imagine for like a real-time action game turning into a turn-based RPG. I think because, and I think part of that is because so much of what people love about Yakuza extends beyond the combat, and there's still likely going to be all the weird like karaoke scenes and weird other things to do in this game.
Well, it's like
I don't
what,
know that for sure.
It's
but,
like what Judgment just did, where
Right.
it's just like, oh, we took this established thing and we went a little bit over here with it.
Yeah.
But it still mostly works in the ways you want it to.
Yeah,
So I think that's what's muted the sort of like knee-jerk negative reaction is that Yakuza's combat has always been important to the series. It's just like there's a lot more than just the
Right.
combat.
Yeah, and if this game can still capture all of that, I assume there will still be a contingent of the fan base that is happy with that. So
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
It's curious to see, but yeah, that was the first thing I saw was the turn-based announcement, and then the second thing I saw was the wonderful developer comments of like, yeah, we thought we just got like we couldn't really do anything different with the combat, so we wanted to try something different. And
Yeah.
I love their transparency about that. Yakuza 7 will launch on the PS4 in Japan on January 16th, 2020, and then release in the West later in 2020. And I don't believe we mentioned this on last week's show, but if you want, Yakuza 3 Remastered is currently available on PS4, and Yakuza 4 and 5 Remastered are also coming to PS4. And that is it for News Crunch. So moving on from that, I thought we could talk a lot about all of... Also, briefly want to mention 15 new minutes of Cyberpunk gameplay. We should talk about that briefly. Like Cyberpunk's a pretty big game. 15 new minutes, 7,000 new screenshots on the site, Tom?
Yeah, 2
roughly.
billion screenshots.
Roughly a lot of new screenshots.
billion.
Yeah.
2 billion. It showed a bit of the gameplay that we saw behind closed doors at E3. So if you haven't seen that, go check that out. It's on IGN and youtube.com/IGN. And of course, we wrote pretty extensively about all that stuff at E3, so you can find all that coverage there. But beyond that, I did want to move on to talk about a bit about what we're playing and what we've been playing and reviewing. And Tom, I want to start with you.
Iceborne.
Monster Hunter World Iceborne.
Yeah.
What'd you give it?
I gave it a 9.0.
A bad game.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah.
No, it's wonderful. It is absolutely
Just garbage.
it's fantastic. It is the story took me like the campaign of the game took me about 40 hours of playing through, and granted, some of that was the benefit of having time to play with, and it wasn't like a crunched review or anything. Is that I could play it at the pace I think most people will, right? And so it took me 40 hours while grinding for some gear here and there and going back and doing other monsters, helping my friends with some stuff when they were behind in it, that sort of thing. And it was that is comparable to the base game. It has as many, I think, around as many assigned quests, which are like the main story quests, as the base game. And it has not as many monsters, but nearly as many monsters as the base game had when it came out.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Do you think they were like, oh, we'll make a small side thing, and it just kept growing?
I don't know. Like, this is the main thing is there's only like the main area that they're adding is the Hoarfrost Reach, and like that is it's interesting that it's just this one main area compared to the 5 that there were in Monster Hunter World. So like it's, and I talk about this in my review, which you can check out on IGN.com or on our YouTube. It's not a sequel, but in ways it is, right? Like there are aspects of it. Like if you're just talking about story content and amount of stuff in this game, it is the size of Monster Hunter World again.
That's amazing.
But then when you talk about, locations, it's not quite that. A lot of the monsters are subspecies and variants of existing monsters, which is I was kind of bummed by, but I know that longtime Monster Hunter fans are more used to that. I've heard that in a lot of other expansions for other Monster Hunter games, generally what happens is there will be like 2 or 3 brand new monsters and then some returning ones and a lot of subspecies and variants of monsters that exist already. As someone who only came into Monster Hunter at World, which is, I think I've talked about this on the show before, roughly 9 million people, including me.
I was one of them.
Yeah. Because 4.5, I think I brought this up, but it's one of my favorite statistics. The best-selling Monster Hunter game before World sold 4.5 million copies, and World has sold 13 million.
Wow.
So there are roughly 9 million people who are fresh into the series from this, and I think those people, myself included, are going to be a little bit off-put by how many subspecies there are, because roughly half the monsters in the game are basically a monster you've already fought, changed and remixed, and they have new abilities and they have new stuff, and that is really, like, they feel unique, they feel fun to fight. None of the fights in this game are bad by any means, but there's no way that a subspecies of a monster you fought at the beginning of World's campaign can be as exciting as just a brand new monster, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it weird how, like, with some franchises, that's a big deal for people? And then in something like Super Mario, they're like, the Koopas and Goombas are back. Yeah.
Where are the Koopa kids? Bring them back.
Yeah. But it's really wonderful.
Was the subspecies versus new monsters thing, like, was that your biggest critique of the game?
Probably. Yeah. I think that there are also some little issues here and there with, like, weapon progression. So, the base game has 8 tiers of rarity, which is like just basically the higher in rarity you get, the better the weapon or the armor is. It has 8 tiers of rarity, and Iceborne extends all of the weapon trees. It makes so every weapon you have, or most weapons you have, can then upgrade to be even better. And there are 4 new rarity tiers. And the trouble with that, they're all really cool, and the weapons are neat and yada yada yada, but like, the fact that they had to stretch 4 rarity tiers over the same length campaign and an end game, whereas Monster Hunter World had 8 rarity tiers to stretch over that length, means that you feel like you're getting weapons slower because the materials you need to make them show up later or take longer to find. So the progression in weapons, the progression in armor is still great, but the progression in weapons is like a little stunted. But again, those are really nitpicky issues, right? And they're nitpicky issues that probably people are not going to be super bothered by most of the time. If you were one of those people that like barely made it to the finish line of World's campaign, it's probably going to bug you that like you're not getting the best weapons you can until the end game. But if you're one of the people who's put, 100+ hours into Monster Hunter World, and you're jumping into Iceborne to get this refresh thing, and you're going to spend tons of time in the end game, then like it's not really going to bother you that much.
Can you, if it's spoilery, we can skip, but can you talk at all about the end game of it? Because obviously Monster Hunter is so much about, playing through it, but then also continuing to play.
I can't really. What I can say, and I say this in my review, this will be completely non-spoilery, they do something, the direction the end game has gone is completely unlike anything Monster Hunter World has done, to a significant degree. And it's a really, really unexpected direction, and it's really, really cool, and it's worth getting to. That's all I can say. I can't go into any specifics.
Awesome. But overall, you love the experience. The new monsters are fun to fight.
Yeah, it's great. It's not. It's one of those things that tries to blur the line between a sequel and an expansion, and it doesn't quite feel like a full sequel. And there are things that bug me here and there, but overall, there's not. There's something like 24 monsters added, and there's not a dud amongst them. They're all great. It's just a wonderful expansion. If you liked Monster Hunter World already, you're gonna absolutely love this. And if you didn't play Monster Hunter World, you just should, because now the game just doubled in size pretty much. Because now they're selling it together, where you can get Iceborne in the base game for $60.
Oh, nice! That's awesome.
So it's just like and again, Monster Hunter is an incredibly intimidating franchise, and World is the most accessible it has ever been.
Yeah.
And to play Iceborne, you do need to complete World, correct?
Yeah, to get into the Iceborne content, you need to have beaten the story of World, which, if you're rushing, takes you about 30 to 40 hours. If you're going at 30 hours if you're going fast, 40 hours if you're like playing a little bit more like a normal human being. Or if you have Casey DeFreitas just like power leveling you through, as you said, then it can take you less than 30.
Yeah, that really helps. Well, your full review is up on IGN. The video review is up on IGN.com and YouTube.com/IGN.
Yeah.
Awesome. Please check that out if you haven't already. Lucy,
Yes.
over in ye old Germany, you played a little game that I played in Seattle, which was much closer. I made a much shorter trip than you did to play this game. But we both
I was
played.
like sweating, like my hair plastered in my face. Like,
I had a 2-hour flight. I read it. It was wonderful.
You read it in a 2 hour.
I didn't finish it. I was reading.
Jumped down his throat and kicked his butt.
Good.
It's a big book, is what we're trying to say.
Book.
You
You
two-
put in many hours.
You two did not apparently read the message of the book. We got to the part where the bullies made fun of the kids and then stopped.
You'll float too.
I'm really enjoying that book. Anyway, we both played Marvel's Avengers.
Yes.
And then also learned a lot more about Marvel's Avengers.
Yeah. So much more.
yes.
So much more.
So before we jump into that, I do want to say we've talked a lot about Avengers on the show, mostly from the point of view of everything we saw at E3, which was the game demo that is now publicly available. They released it in conjunction with Gamescom. You can watch that demo. Lucy and I played that demo specifically. We played that bit of the game. That demo includes the new footage they included for San Diego Comic-Con, which seems to tease Kamala Khan. But we played that game, so we've played as each of the 5 Avengers. We've seen it in action, then learned a lot more about how the game works with some extra footage and stuff. And I came away, and I think you did similarly, of, oh boy, I wish this is what they had shown us at E3.
Yeah, it was such a strange demo insofar as I was like, this is just so much information, because we had the actual like demo that, you know, was shown behind closed doors, but we could play it, and then we just got like half an hour
Info.
of info.
Yeah.
And it was just like, whoa,
And it's like costumes and skill trees and how the world works and how missions work. And if you were wondering about microtransactions and story and all these things, and it was like, oh, so the 30 articles we wrote at E3 would have just not have happened if we
Yeah.
Oh, right. Because you're like, well, how will microtransactions work? Here's what we think. Maybe.
Yeah.
And they were just like, and you will be able to buy some of these costumes in the store. And we're like, oh. Okay.
I
there we
mean,
go.
and to Square's credit, I do feel like it's probably like they're probably a little bit like, oh yeah, we probably should have done that in the first place because this is a bit dumb.
So top level, do you guys feel better about it?
Much better about
Yeah.
it. I still think there's an uneasy sort of feeling in my chest where I'm just like, oh, it's trying a lot. It's trying to do a lot. You know, like I came away from chatting with Corey Barlog when he was recording Beyond for our God of War like end of year best overall game thing. And
that was the exact title. You
Yeah.
got it right.
Yeah.
I couldn't
We're really bad at
Game of the year.
headlines.
Game of the year. Why did I just want best overall game thing?
We actually broke YouTube.
IGN,
with
best
how long
overall
it
game
took.
thing. And I just remember like we were chatting. It was just like the reason that God of War was so good is because it did like a couple of things really well, and it just focused on those two things. You know what I mean? And I feel like Avengers is just trying to do so many different things. And I worry, and again, this is just my personal worry. I hope it won't eventuate like this, but like I worry that it's going to spread itself a little thin.
Yeah, I think it could. I have a feeling this is a game where there are going to be parts of it that are amazing,
Yeah.
and then some parts of it that I'll probably in time just kind of ignore or pass over. I'd love for it all to be fascinating, but yeah, I agree with you. It feels like they're juggling so much, and I'm excited to see that ambition, like actually getting a sense of just how the campaign and how replayability of it is structured. They showed us behind closed doors, and it's something that before they announced the game, we were all talking about like Marvel's Destiny. Is that what this game is? And it kind of is, but after seeing what it is, I like that idea.
Yeah.
So they showed us essentially the world of the game. The Avengers will all operate out of a like downed helicarrier. And you have like a world map, and the world is divided into different geographic areas. And so they showed us the American Southwest. And they were like, this is a campaign mission. You go there, and it is a specific mission designed for a specific hero.
Yeah,
and you
so
play
it's a
that there.
hero. Yeah, I think the correct term is like hero mission.
Yes,
and then
yeah.
there's Warzone missions.
Warzone missions, which are the ones you can play
Yeah.
in co-op, that are the ones where you're all getting together and doing big action set pieces, but they also do have a bit of world building and lore in there. And then they also were like, there's all these other icons on the map. We're not going to tell you what those are, but you can see that's a Black Widow icon. So chances are that'll have to do with Black Widow. And it's like, oh, so that's probably like a lighter replayable or quick solo mission that gives you maybe a bit of her abilities. Like it gives you a way to easily increase her or a way to find out more about her story.
The complaint about it trying to do too much is such a real worry too, because we were just talking about Arkham Knight and the Batmobile, and it's like if they're trying to make every one of these heroes play differently, which hero is going to be the Batmobile, right? Like which one of these heroes is you're going to be like, another Hulk mission, damn it. Like, and if you're not able to choose in those kind of critical path story missions, there's going to be a hero or two that just isn't as fun as some of the other heroes, and you're going to have to play through their missions.
I am happy at least, though, that the missions are designed around those heroes.
Yeah.
Well, because
That's smart, yeah.
my worry was that the campaign was going to be, because this was unclear even at E3, like you could choose whichever hero you want and go through the campaign with them, because then missions would have to work for all 5 of them.
Right.
Like, you know, like the Hulk is more ground level, whereas Iron Man could just fly over everyone theoretically.
Yeah, and it's definitely incredibly ambitious to, instead of doing a hyper-focused single-player game or even multiplayer game that's based on one specific character trait, like Iron Man, Spider-Man, or doing something a lot more sort of comical slapstick like Ultimate Alliance, which takes everybody and just kind of goes, oh, you have powers, but they only go this high. You know? And like, to do something that's scoped this like sort of gargantuan is really ambitious. I don't know anything about game design or a very, tiny amount, but it seems to me like it's the kind of thing that like they might be like, oh no, this kind of got out of our hands.
I mean, the more I think about it deeply, and again, I came back way more impressed by it than when I saw it at E3, but the more I thought about what I'd learned, it kept breaking my brain in terms of like how far I understand game design to go. Because it's just like, okay, so you've got 5 different characters, you are going to build worlds that will cater to one specific one in particular, but you're also going to cater to all of them in these other areas where you will want people to choose each different Avenger because you don't want 4 Thors flying around. And you've got to have that be balanced. You've also got to have this like very robust loot system to keep people wanting to play, because the whole idea is that they're just going to introduce more and more of these characters,
right?
And it's just going to be a years like ongoing experience.
Yeah, so everything also has to almost retrofitted be able to support these future characters, which obviously they're planning some of these in advance. It's not like they're going into release being like, who knows who we'll put in next? But they were saying to us in our briefing, they were like, the new characters are not just going to fall into like the Iron Man class or the Thor class. Like the way these 5 heroes are supposed to play differently, the 6th hero will play just as differently, and the 7th will as well. Like it's supposed to keep multiplying.
And I guess what is good about that too is in terms of the sort of costume and cosmetic side, there's decades of source
and
material.
80 years of source material.
Rather than something like Anthem, which you're like, oh, what am I going to get? Like, I can get Iron Man's colors. But like, who is Anthem?
But then, of course, on top of that pressure, you've also got the pressure of like MCU storytelling and creating stories that feel as epic as what we've seen on the big screen, because they are modeled. These characters are modeled so closely on their MCU counterparts, and it's just like, wow, that is a lot. That is a lot of like stuff to juggle, and that's just scratching the surface. Like we didn't even really find out about like how co-op works.
Oh yeah, there's so much left to it. Yeah,
there's still so much we have to learn. And like again, I'm stoked. I'm really stoked that this is a much more defined game in my mind now, and I'm really stoked that they are trying so many different things. But also, I'm just like, ooh, I hope you tread that tightrope.
My issue with that sort of aesthetically is that it does get close enough to the films in terms of looks, but far enough from likenesses that it takes you out of it. And so I wish they had just gone artistically in a completely different direction rather than go at something that's sort of hyper realistic and sort of like a lot of the MCU characters have this kind of like military, almost soldier like. There's like that's the kind of art direction they went in, right? And I don't know if like going with something that was more cel shaded or cartoony or even different entirely would have worked. But the way it is now, it's like 50% like I'm watching the movies, and then I look at the characters' faces and voices, and it takes me out of that.
Well, this one's going to be weird too, though, because you can put a different costume on it. So like,
Yeah.
you can be looking at the Hulk, and it looks a lot. I mean, the Hulk generally looks the same no matter what medium, but like you can put him in his Joe Fix-It outfit, so he's in a pinstripe suit, or you can have Thor be in a more classic, like Norse-looking costume than he is in some of the MCU movies.
Which is cool because I hope they let it get goofy. You know?
Yeah.
Like,
They're
I think
definitely
they're open
going
to
to.
it, yeah.
I think that's where the microtransactions come in because this, I think a lot of the costumes you'll be able to earn in game, but like I think some of they're really pushing hard for costume cosmetic stuff, and that's where the marketplace will be a thing.
I appreciate that because
yeah,
comic books are inherently funny. A lot of the MCU movies are lighthearted in parts. There's great jokes in them. I mean, I was watching Endgame again the other day, and the scene where Ant-Man loses his taco is just one of the funniest things I've seen in a movie in years. And you look at like the Lego Avengers games, Lego Marvel games, and again, Ultimate Alliance. And I think they do a good job of sort of kit bashing all of that nonsense together in a cohesive place. While still celebrating its coolness and kick-assery.
Yeah, I will say, I don't know if it's just because I've had to watch the demo like 5 times and then play it. The like disconnect of, the MCU versus how these characters look, it didn't bother me as much anymore.
I think when it's a thrill to be playing as Iron Man, and it's a thrill to be smashing stuff up as Hulk. Like it is, it feels good.
Yeah.
And another thing that like I just want to point out is that the intro that we did play is very linear, and I did mention that in a video that was shot at Gamescom at the time, and I think people thought that was kind of a complaint. It wasn't. It's just that what we were promised is that the gameplay, once it opens out, is not going to be like that. It's going to be much more, you're going to have much more freedom. But this was just kind of like a appetizer of how the characters play. And it was really fun. It was very linear, but it was a prologue. It was like an intro. So.
Yeah, I liked playing as all 5 of them.
Me too.
So yeah,
that's like probably the best thing you could possibly say.
Yeah,
at least for now.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. But yeah, it was definitely so nice to just find out more of what this game actually is during that period. I also want to mention while I played Marvel's Avengers at PAX, I also got to play the PS4 exclusive Predator Hunting Grounds, which is the 4v1 multiplayer shooter. Created by the developers Ilphonic, who created the Friday the 13th game of a similar nature. I played both as a soldier fighting against the Predator, and then as the Predator itself. I won as the Predator.
Nice. Oh, nice.
Very proud, destroying all of my fellow coworkers. Prouditor.
I'm a dad now. I make terrible jokes. I'm sorry.
If it's a great game, we can use that as the strapline. So the setup of the game is exactly that. It's 4v1. The 4 soldiers have a series of objectives they need to complete before, at the end of the level that we were playing, at least in the jungle, you have to get to the chopper and outrun the Predator. As long as one soldier makes it to the end, it counts as a win.
Except for the other soldiers.
Except for the others, which happened to us. Our final soldier made it to the end. The rest of us were dead. But the 4 of you are playing. There's a few different classes, like an assault class, a sniper class, etc. And you're, having to turn on radio relays or having to hold down a specific location until something boots up, things of that nature. There is an enemy faction of soldiers out in the jungle, but basically you're just a human soldier. Then the Predator, you play as the Predator. It has the shoulder cannon, as you would expect. It has the arm blades. You can turn invisible. You can obviously scout from the treetops. You have heat vision. And you are much tougher, but by the same token, they do some things to balance it out that I thought worked really well. Namely, the Predator, all of its skills are based around, except for just pure attacking, are based around one energy meter that needs to recharge before you can use it if you've depleted it. So your shoulder cannon, you can just do a lot of volleys with it, quick volleys that don't take up too much of your battery, but you can also do a charge shot, which does a lot of damage, but also takes up more than half the battery. So you can only really get 2 of those off before you have to sit back and wait.
Oh, wow.
And if you get swarmed, the Predator can go down. They are not impervious to attacks. They definitely do have a lot more health, it felt like. As I was playing as the Predator, some of the enemy AI of just that enemy faction would be shooting at me, and it felt like nothing. Like picking away shots. But
so it should. You're the Predator.
Exactly. But then 3 or 4 of the human playable characters started ganging up on me and were just constantly unloading bullets. And it was like, there's all this green blood flying. I need to run away. And so the Predator can pretty easily run to a tree. If you see a tree trunk highlighted in red, you can pounce toward it and then just climb up.
Oh, wow.
And then
cool.
any branch that you see in front of you, it basically can parkour through the branches. And if you see a red branch, you can just press X to jump over to it. So you can do that while you're invisible to sneak away. You can use heat vision. Alternatively, the humans can cover themselves in mud so your heat vision can't see them. So like, for example, when I was a human, the Predator attacked two of my cohorts who were like literally right next to me, but he didn't see me because I was covered in mud and he was using heat vision. So I went around him and started unloading into him from behind, and then eventually he found me and killed me.
Wow.
But there is a little bit of strategy there, which made it a lot more tense and fun. And when the Predator comes in to attack, like, it tells you you're being hunted. It's like, oh, I'm going to die. I need to run. I need to hide. And if you get like stuck in a building, there's nowhere to go. Like the Predator, at the end of the day, if it's a one-on-one match, unless the Predator has no health left, you're probably going to die.
I mean, that sounds like my alley.
It was fun.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. As someone who's like kind of stayed away a lot more from shooter experiences pretty recently, we played these 2 matches, and had we not been in the middle of a convention, it would have been one of those things where like, I'd play a few more of these right now. Yeah, like I really was having a good time with that on either side of the coin, because it didn't feel like, as the 4 human characters, it was impossible to win. Like, it felt doable.
Did it do anything different from Evolve to make it, I guess, like evolved from Evolve, which tanked so badly?
I mean, one, having the Predator license helps.
Yeah,
like, just
true.
knowing that you're being... There's a tenseness that if you've seen a Predator movie, of knowing the Predator is out there, and then when it disappears, you're like, I have no way to know where it is. Like, you do have the friendly ability, you can spot it. Like, you can basically tell your friends, if you see it in the treetops, there it is, and like ping it, which is a nice little system to have, but then it can go invisible and run away, and then you don't know.
Right.
So there is this certain, like, you always know the Predator is out there, but alternatively, the Predator doesn't always know where you are. The Predator... So when you start at a level, you have no idea where the humans are. So it's like, I have to wait for some gunfire to start up, or I have to wait for an explosion to happen, or things like that.
So Evolve sort of died for the asymmetrical multiplayer genre to thrive, because Dead by Daylight, Friday the 13th, a lot of these 1v many games have actually gotten a lot more popular recently in the last couple of years, and are pretty fun. I think one of the key differences, and it sounds like this is one that is taking to heart as well, one of the reasons I think that these games have advantages over Evolve, and this is not a hard and fast rule, is the one hunting the many rather than the many hunting the one. In Evolve, it was this monster running away, trying to do things and getting stronger, while everybody was constantly chasing it. In games like Friday the 13th and Dead by Daylight and Predator, the many are trying to do a thing, and they're under constant threat. And it's like such a small psychological difference of like, we need to do this quickly, rather than we're constantly chasing this bullet sponge and it's always coming after us.
Right.
Yeah.
that's very true.
That flip is
Psychological
actually
difference.
very, very
Yeah.
important in terms of how like frustrating the game is.
There was a
said.
constant tension while I was not the Predator of like, he could appear out of anywhere and I might die. I really need to not stay out, and like, it changed the way I ran around the world.
And when he disappears, you're not like, oh, okay, we gotta go find him, right? Like, you're like, okay, we can get back to what we were doing.
Yeah.
Quick question. Does it take place entirely like in the sort of Predator 1 movie setting? Is it just in our world?
So we were just playing in like a jungle setting. I don't know the scope of the game, and I don't know if there's going to be multiple maps necessarily. They haven't really talked too much about that or what the progression will be like. There wasn't a ton of like story set up necessarily. It did feel sort of like Predator 1-esque for sure. It felt like it was capturing that mentality the most.
Cool.
But I don't know where else it goes from there.
I hope they do DLC or expand content for Predators, which took place entirely on the Predator planet.
Oh,
and
yeah.
had a bunch of like soldiers and creepy people airdropped in to like almost a battle royale setting where they had to fight like Predator dogs and other sort of
Seems
concepts.
built perfectly sort of for that idea.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I'm curious to see what they do, but I liked it way more than I was expecting to. So yeah, I'm super excited for that. It comes out in 2020. We don't have a full detail list there. But other than that, Brian, did you play anything while on vacation or anything?
I played through a small game that Tom put me onto called
Far Lone Sales.
Far Lone Sales. It's a name I constantly forget because it sounds like a a college.
It's not a great name.
Yeah, it's not a great name, but it's a really cool, small, maybe like 4-hour long game about this small character who has to essentially bring this gigantic boat car thing across a desert. And it looks like a side scroller, and it plays like a little bit like what you combined
Lovers in a Dangerous Space-Time
and
Inside.
Yeah, which is I think the perfect description for it. And it's a little clunky because by the nature of you're dragging this giant arc almost across the desert, but it's super charming, and basically like little fires will appear on your ship, and you'll have to put them out. You'll have to find gasoline to power it through, and you're basically rolling slowly through this dystopian landscape. And eventually you get a sail, and your vehicle can just kind of fly down. And it's like very lonely and isolated, but also really beautiful. And it's on PS4. So if you want to grab it on the cheap, go give it a look, because you'll fly through it in like a Saturday afternoon. It's like a nice little experience. Yeah,
it came out on PS4 in April and just came out on Switch. So Tom, you reviewed it for that.
Yep.
Awesome. Lucy, do you have to leave us, unfortunately?
I do. I am heading to New Zealand for a couple of weeks, so I will see you all shortly.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Farewell.
Bye, Lucy.
How do I do this?
Just run.
Okay.
No, you're doing good.
You're good.
Yeah. Bye, Lucy.
Bye.
Have a great
Bye,
trip.
Lucy. As Lucy leaves us, we will move on from what we've been playing to just the last couple of segments. Namely, we're going to jump right into, if the sound works, memory card. Okay,
Shout out to Ronnie.
Shout out to Ronnie. We miss you, Ronnie. If you are listening, please send me more jingles. Thank you very much. But also, we love you. Memory card is, of course, our weekly segment, and I'm going to find the memory card we're reading this week. Memory card, every week we read your funny, sad, happy, weird, whatever memories of your video gaming life. On the show. Thank you to everyone who's been sharing these with me. Thank you to everyone who mentioned the segment to me at PAX. I'm so happy to hear so many of you love this segment. We will continue to do it so long as you continue to send in stories. So if you have a story you want to share, send it to beyond@ign.com with the subject line memory card, and we'll read those on the show every week. This week's comes to us from Theo. Theo says, "Hey, Jonathan and Beyond crew. My dad has always been a PlayStation fan, and as a result, I too have played on these consoles with him. It was during the PS3 era, though, that he developed a habit for going for the trophies and platinums in the games he played. At a younger age, I took little notice of trophies, most likely because I didn't play games long enough to care before moving on, and because they weren't on PlayStation before the PS3. But anyway, don't worry about that, Theo. When I got a PS Vita, though, something changed in me. I quickly became obsessed with platinum collecting and started making remarks to my dad that I would one day overtake him. He would reply that the difficulty of the platinum should have more value than the quantity, as I went for the easier games." That man has never met Greg Miller. For a while, we said that we would create a book and use the PlayStation Trophy Guide difficulty as a scoring system for all of our platinums. About 2.5 years ago, coincidentally, when I started to get real close to him in number of platinums, we started that book to sit alongside our PS4. Currently, my dad stands at 71 platinums and a total of 275 points. I have 93 platinums and a total of 283.5 points. Yes, that means I am winning for now. The memories that our ongoing competition has created will stay with me forever, but this week I go into year 13, my final year of school, to complete my A-levels to give me the grades to go on and study university next year. I don't know where I might end up moving to next year, but I know our competition will still continue and keep us as close as we update the book with every platinum to come. Thank you all so much for listening, Theo from the UK.
That is so awesome.
That's great.
I love that they created a complex math system for a complex math system that PlayStation created.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a trophy competition back at IGN, like way back in the day before I started.
I think I heard rumblings of that, and I was here at the time, and I was like, I'm not doing that. And then the people that went in, I believe Scott Bromley, who now writes and produces for the Star Wars show, won.
Yes.
But it was like Greg, Colin, I think Clements, Scott Bromley, and Scott. I think it was just like everyone. Scott's one of those guys that's just like ultra competitive, and he was just like he was playing it was like Miley or Hannah Montana Dream Catcher. Or whatever.
I feel like I remember hearing about that on podcast.
Yeah.
The funny thing I remember distinctly about that was the advantage Scott had over the others was that they had already played all the easy games for Platinum.
Yes.
So Scott could still get all of those trophies and it would still count for the competition, whereas Greg, Colin, and Clements had like not played those. They'd already played a bunch.
No, it's like if 3 fit people and 1 overweight person got into like a monthly weight loss challenge, and they're like, "I'm trying everything," and he's like, "Aha! I lost 35 pounds.
Yeah.
I've never felt better." No, I know. Recently there was that what was that mayonnaise game?
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
You know about this game? It's like a mayonnaise game that came to PS4 that is just like one of the easiest platinums, and the game was only like $1. And you basically just like, it's almost like a cookie clicker. You just have to like.
My name is Mayo.
Yeah, my name is Mayo.
It's 99 cents.
Yep, it's a pretty easy platinum if you're looking for one of those. I personally don't go for those unless I'm playing a game and I'm like, oh man, I'm almost at the finish line. I might as well get the platinum. But this one, I Am Mayo is basically like this mayonnaise jar tapping game where you just have to do nonsense to a mayonnaise jar and unlock trophies.
I didn't realize that trophy games were a thing on PS4.
Oh
because,
yeah,
like games like this, which are just designed specifically to get you trophies. Because that's the thing on Steam, where there'll be achievement games where you log in and you get 10 achievements, and you press one button and you get 10 more achievements, and you press another button you get 10 more achievements.
It's sort of like those people who are like crazy for frequent flyer miles, and they'll book like incredibly short, but like they'll book like
The
weird
ones
cheap
that work out.
Yeah, weird cheap tricks that for flights that will get them like 50,000 extra miles for very little money. Trophy hunters are the same way.
And if you need
a lot
to
of them
know
are, at least.
any of those games, ask Greg Miller because he has all of those platinums. I think he got his 1,000th platinum recently.
I think it's I think bodybuilders would call that dirty bulking.
But whatever
it
gets
counts,
the trophy
right?
level up. Yeah.
It counts.
My trophy level is perilously low, but that competition back then and my love of trophies inspired our next segment, which is Trophy Test.
Hooray!
Because Lucy couldn't join us for Trophy Test, I am going to give her an honorary point. Trophy Test.
That's good.
So she gets one.
That's better than I might do at the start.
So Trophy Test, for those who don't know, before we wrap up the show, Trophy Test is every week I come up with a series of fake trophy names. I will read for the contestants on the show the real trophy description and then give them a real and a fake trophy name. They have to tell me which is the real name of that trophy.
I love this game so much.
This is a joy for me to do every week, and I love to mess everyone up. But the fun part about Trophy Test is everyone is a winner in Trophy Test. So every week I will give a gold, silver, and bronze trophy, and at the end of the year we will give out the platinum for Trophy Test. This week's trophies are Until Dawn related. So I have for you 6 Until Dawn trophies. Wow, it's getting violent.
Yeah.
Just like Until Dawn. Unless you save everyone. Anyway, moving on. These are the trophies. Tell me which one is real and which one is fake. Just tell me the real one. First trophy. Chris chose to shoot Ashley. Is that trophy called Fatal Grudge or Ashley Shoots? Fatal Grudge or Ashley Shoots?
It's been a while since I played Until Dawn.
I'm going to go Fatal Grudge.
Yeah, but it's not fun if I pick the same thing as you.
Brian's locking eyes with me, and it really stresses me out.
I'll go with Ashley Shoots, even though it's the opposite of what the thing I think you just said was, which means I'm wrong.
Well,
But
Brian, you're wrong. Yeah, it's Fatal Grudge.
yay!
That was a thing I didn't think about when I was making these before coffee this morning. Moving on from that, Ashley snapped and let Chris die. Is it can't snap out of it or Ashley snaps?
Ashley snaps.
Yeah, I'm going to metagame this one and go with Ashley Snaps.
You're both correct.
Yes.
Wow.
Screw you two.
All right.
Moving on from that one. All the girls...
Wait.
Yeah.
Just so we can clarify that. Did pre-coffee Jonathan try to mimic Ashley Snaps, which was a real one, but making Ashley Shoots?
Yeah,
which then
so-
led
Even
us to
even
the
though
wrong
Chris
one?
shoots Ashley?
Yeah.
So normally that's how I trip people up very easily in the first trophies of this.
Amazing.
Well, I have
got
news
it
for
wrong.
you, sir. I walked right into it.
Great job. Moving on from that one. All the girls survived until dawn. Warriors of the Night or Four Daughters of Darkness? Warriors of the Night or Four Daughters of Darkness? Which is the real one?
Warriors of the Night.
I'm going to go Four Daughters.
The correct answer is Four Daughters of
What?
Darkness.
You made up Warriors of the Night?
Yeah.
You're so weird.
Yeah.
This is what I like very understated about you. You're a very weird dude. I love you for
Yeah,
that.
it's very true. All 8 friends survived until dawn. It's the name of the
This one's
game.
just not called Until Dawn. I'll be sad.
Survive the night or they all live.
Is he looking at the answers over there?
No,
He
they're not
can't
listed.
tell.
I'm
Yeah,
just
they're
reading
not
it.
listed.
Survive the night or
Or
they all live? Survive the night.
You're saying survive the night?
Yes.
They All Live is so dumb that it might be real, right?
Yeah,
Like,
it's
that
really
sort of
dumb.
gray
They
area.
haven't been so creative so far. Warriors of the Night was
I'm
the
gonna
best
go-
one, and it's fake.
Final answers,
I'm going to
please.
go Survive the Night also.
You're both wrong. It's they all live.
I knew it. It was one of those dumb answers.
Yeah, it's really bad. Going
writes
into
these?
Going into the next one, Tom, you have 3 points. Brian, you have 1. Nobody survived until dawn. The name of the game. Is it This Is the End or Seeing Red? This is the end or Seeing Red?
This is the end.
Yeah, I'm going with that too.
You're both correct.
Ah, thank goodness.
This is
You got to go different than me because then you'll lose points and I can
But if I go the
win.
same as you, it's mutually assured destruction, and I win no matter what.
sucks. It's not fair.
That's not why I was doing it though.
Final one.
I can't win.
Yeah.
But you're above Lucy, so that helps.
She's not here.
She had 1 point,
Lose
though.
with
You were tied.
pride.
She got a participation trophy for leaving.
Final question. All the boys escaped death. Is it The Quicker Man, as some may know, The Wicker Man,
Yeah.
or All the Night's Men?
I'm gonna go All the Night's Men.
I'm gonna go quicker, man, because we already went. The Warriors of the Night was not real, but I don't know.
Brian, you're correct. The Quicker Man is correct.
So I only lost by 1 point.
You only lost by 1 point. The final score is Tom with 4, Brian with 3, and Lucy with 1 for having
man.
reviewed Until Dawn, I believe.
Nice.
Does that mean I hold my lead?
Tom, let's see where things rank. I'm going to check that, so please vamp for me.
Because
Well,
for some reason I was in the lead on this from the
For the year?
no, we started over since 600 because
Yeah.
I
Okay.
lost the math. If someone out there has the math for me, I would greatly appreciate that.
Okay.
Please don't. If you have the math, don't. I'm winning.
That's not fair.
appreciate
I don't think I've only been on one episode since 600, and I didn't win it.
Yeah, that's actually correct. I have to add you to this list. Hold on.
See, I'm not even on the list. That's how bad I'm doing.
Ha 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 ha.
Give me one of those Lucy O'Brien, participation trophies. Throw me on there. Give me the bonus point.
Sure, why not?
Let's do Mario
numbers
Party
don't matter.
rules, where like I landed on the most green spaces. And
Wait, he actually gave you a point.
Yeah, I did.
Aw.
He asked.
Fine.
I
don't
didn't
have
say
to
he
do
couldn't
that.
ask.
You've been on vacation in Gamescom. You're
Exactly. You had some weeks you wouldn't have been able to. So I'm going to give it anyway.
which I hypothetically would have won.
So from the lowest on the list to highest number of points, currently it rests at Casey with 1 point, Max with 2. JR, Brian, and Janet are all tied with 3 points, Lucy with 4 points, and in the lead, Tom with 8 points.
8?
8 points.
That's what seat filling while everyone's at Gamescom gets you.
Wow.
Tom-
It's dirty bulking.
Tom's joined the show at the right time.
When everybody comes back from Gamescom vacation, I'm just gonna.
It's just
tank
gonna-
it.
yeah,
Never be-
your I Am Mayo trophies are going away.
I should
You
do
got to fight for the real ones now.
I should do I Am Mayo for next week.
You can take away my free point.
I'm not going to. You asked. Okay, I'll take it away.
You're going to remind me of it
Yeah.
at the end of the year, though. I don't want to get
very
like some fake victory
Participation
in
prize.
December. You're like, Brian wins, or does he? Because that's Mario Party rules, and I hate
Yeah, it's
that.
very true. Anyway, thank you both so much for playing Trophy Test and dealing with my forgetting how to read a trophy and who shot who. Thank you all so much for listening to this episode beyond episode 604. When we are not on the show, of course, we are doing so much on IGN.com, YouTube.com/IGN, and all of our many social media portals. So please go to all those pages, read what we write, watch the videos we make. It helps all of us stay here and be able to do the show every week, which we love doing so much. Thank you so much for watching and listening. In addition to finding us in all those places, Tom, where can people find you?
I have an Instagram that posts exclusively pictures of pies. It's called Bo Pies, Bo_pies.
I don't follow that. I don't
You were
follow
mentioning that. I didn't know you were going to
Yeah,
mention them.
I'm mentioning that over Twitter.
Yeah. Brian, as you look up Tom's Instagram account, where can people find you?
I'm at Brian Altano on Instagram. I put up a ton of pictures from like travel that I just did there. So if you're into that, go check those out. And on Twitter, I'm at Agent Bizzle.
And I am at JM Dornbush on Twitter and Instagram. Before we leave, just want to also sincerely say thank you to everyone so much who came out to the PAX panel that IGN hosted that I was a part of and helped put together. It was a huge blast to have everyone show up and to get you all to yell beyond. So thank you so much for doing that. But thank you so much to everyone who came to that, who said hello around the show, who checked out anything we were doing there, and in perpetuity check out what we do. It means so much to us that you do. So thank you for that, and thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and as always, beyond.
Beyond.
Beyond.